Hello and welcome to the next episode from the Live Network featuring Hilary Fannin and her debut novel, The Weight of Love. Hilary, thank you for joining me.
It's lovely to be here. It's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you to the Riverbank for sponsoring this episode of the series. So, Hilary, you have a very nice mug there. What is in the mug?
This is a mug of black tea, Barry's tea, and the mug was bought in Skibbereen.
Okay.
That's totally coincidental. It's a very Cork cup of tea. Okay.
Okay, and you're at home. We're alone, but you said the cat might join us at some point. That's fine.
The cat is on the yoga mat I don't ever use in lockdown. So the cat is just sitting on the yoga mat. She may join in. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start, Hilary, with an extract from the book. You're going to read a section for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this is the beginning of chapter 2, and it concerns Ruth, who's one of the main characters, and it's the first night that she spends with Joseph, whom she has just met a couple of hours beforehand. Chapter 2. Oh, I put my glasses on. London, October 1995. The first time Ruth slept with Joseph was in his broken bed in his basement flat. The cracked slats underneath his mattress created a dip in the centre that rolled the sleepers together, or would have rolled the sleepers together had she been asleep, which she wasn't. She lay on the edge while he absorbed the hollow, arms thrown wide, head tilting towards his shoulder. He slept, crucified. She put her hand on his stomach, bird light. He held his breath, she held hers. In those halted seconds, the room felt very still. Ruth took her hand away. He exhaled. She lay that first night on the rim of his bed, half submerged under city streets that nobody wanted to walk on after dark, the flat metallic taste of knife and cheese in her unwashed mouth, and wondered if she should get up, find her boots and skirt, her cardigan and tights, her coat and bag, and leave. She thought about retracing her steps along the ribboned streets he had led her through back to Euston Road, where she could cross over to the station and wait on a bench until it was light. Wait, upright, her satchel on her knee, until morning commuters with clean teeth and clean underwear began to fill the concourse, and she too could begin her journey home. Home, a strange concept in this city. Ruth considered her not inconsiderable fear an empty station save for the mad, the dangerous and the bereft, and weighing it against the embarrassment she would feel in the morning if she stayed until he woke to find her still there, decided to go. But in the margins of the deciding to depart and the departing, she drifted off to sleep. And when she woke again to find herself still on the lip of his bed, morning was breaking through his basement white window. Ice light in the boxed glass, wintering in the rotting frames. She lay, still as still, watching him, despairing now that if she moved, he might wake and not recognise her. She lay looking at this man she'd known since 10 minutes past 4 the previous afternoon, and words like alabaster sprang to mind. And mortifyingly, the phrase carved saint floated up from somewhere, floated up from under his basement floor, wriggled up the leg of his broken bed and crawled into Ruth's ear. Carved saint, she thought, for fuck's sake. The dust spores of a national affliction, the habit of sublimating desire, of wishing every gash a stigmata, must have settled on her. Careful as she'd been to shake her off, the knee-socked little girl framed on her mother's sideboard in communion dress and veil, knitting her pink rosary beads through her white-gloved fingers, must have climbed into her haversack last summer and crossed the Irish Sea to London with her.
Anne Enright called the book Heartache for Grownups. I thought that was interesting because I suppose it does seem quite real, and it is a story of the intricacies of marriage, I guess, and this kind of love triangle between Joseph and Robin and Ruth. Do you feel it's atypical as a writer, like from a story point of view? Were you conscious of that? What did you think of that comment?
Well, I mean, obviously, I was really grateful to her because she's a writer that I really admire, and for her to make the comment meant a lot to me on a personal level. Maybe it is Heartache for Grownups. I think that there's something in it which is like, I think we make assumptions about. I think when we're younger, we maybe can make assumptions about our older selves that we've yet to meet. That self will be resolved in some way, or that self won't carry memory and pain around in the same way that you do when you're young, when things are so fresh and so real. And my kind of internal argument in the book is that that sense of loss, that sense of passion, of desire, of need, of now, doesn't diminish as we get older. In fact, memory can intensify that feeling. And so it is about heartache. And it's about a heartache, a seed of heartache that was planted in this character, Ruth, when she was about 23. We meet her when she's 23, but we also meet her when she's in her late 40s, going into her 50s. Mm-hmm. And how that heartache has grown through her self and her desires and her choices is what I trace back in the book. So yeah, Heartache for Grownups is a really succinct phrase.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I was wondering when I was reading the book, you get point of view of Ruth and Robin, but a lot of Robin, and I wasn't really sure how to feel about Robin, or as a reader how we feel about him, because there's something in him compared to Ruth and compared to Joseph, just from my own point of view. They tend to be kind of, I think, the more colorful characters, or the people I felt very drawn to. But then I did really feel a huge kind of a pity for Robin, because he does seem to be, for the large part or until a certain point, kind of the good guy. And when you say about the sense of heartache that Ruth feels, Robin is very much the victim of that heartache in a strange way. He's taken on fatherhood with her, and this marriage with her, and this journey, and then obviously we get to a point where it's too much, or things get complicated. And that's interesting when you say that you trace back her memory and her feeling, and Joseph, because I felt that the voice of Robin was an interesting point of view to receive the story from, especially at certain moments during the narrative.
Robin was quite an odd person for me. He kind of insisted on being in the book. And I mean, initially when I was trying to think about it, and I'm very bad at thinking about anything, I'm much better at just kind of doing stuff. But when I was thinking about the book initially, I thought I would write about Ruth and Joseph. And Robin was a sidebar character who I kind of needed in order to illustrate Ruth's present, her now. And then every time I turned up to the keyboard, Robin was the most present character there. And like, it was almost as if I could actually, he was just a fantastic mule, really, for me. I ended up really, really liking him, because I think that sometimes life, to me, he represented life in a very realistic kind of way. He'd fallen in love with this woman. He lost her, and he found her. And he too is dealing with the difference between memory and reality.
The presence of the mothers in the book is interesting. I'm thinking particularly Joseph's mother and Robin's mother. And in different ways, I suppose they show us something about both of the male characters, but they both seem to have a very big impact on Robin and on Joseph. Joseph and his obsession with his mother, and the drawings and the art, and how we link that to his own struggles with himself during the course of his life. And then Robin and the details from his childhood, and I loved those details of him leaving home, and the kind of deep frustration that he feels with his mother, because he kind of knows that there's a different world outside of the cottage, but you can really see her affection for him and the woolly vests and him wondering, how am I going to survive? This isn't going to make a difference. But at the same time, you chose to tell a large part of Robin's narrative, I suppose, from his hometown, from this place where he goes at the end of her life. And similarly, we link back to Joseph later in life and this relationship. Was that a key thing when you set out writing it? I know you were saying that you were envisioning Ruth and Joseph in that relationship, but the mothers definitely have an interesting presence in the book.
They have a huge presence, and there was a kind of realization when I finished the book that it was nearly about mothers, really. I don't know, it's funny, I was reading Actress, Anne Enright's novel Actress recently, and I thought to myself, this is a book about a marriage, and I think The Weight of Love is actually a book about relationships between mothers and older and adult children, and how that relationship changes. I mean, I think it's absolutely central to it. But there's this kind of thing, when I used to be an actor years ago, and we used to do this thing of holding a kind of plumb line over a character, kind of a plumb line through a character. You'd get a script and you'd read it, and you'd have a kind of mental plumb line that you would drop through the script and see if your character was adhering to that plumb line. If they were making these mad emotional darts, you would try and find ways of bringing it back in line. And when I started tracing the lines really interest me. The maps of their emotional maps really interest me. And it endlessly went back to the mother. It went back to how they separated from the mother, and who they became, and how successfully or unsuccessfully they managed to separate from somebody else's expectation of them, or somebody else's mothering. Robin's mother is just, she just wants to love him, but her love is, it's quite a suffocating kind of love.
Yeah.
And then Ruth's mother is kind of quite funny, but nuts, you look back. I sometimes wonder if we write to send out kind of SOSs to ourselves. I don't know. Because I don't know, because I'm 50, 150, whatever I am now. I'm 58 now. And it's the first time I've ever written a novel. And so I'm not really sure about what novelists do or how they write or what happens in novels. But I got a sense when I finished it that I had written something to myself about mothering and being recently bereaved, because my mother died during the process of writing that novel. And I became quite fascinated, I think, with that through line.
It's a great book, Hilary, and I really wish you the very best with it. And thank you for it.
Lovely to meet you.
Dani. Lovely to meet you.